NFL punter Pat McAfee was arrested on October 20th, 2010. He had gotten hammered and took a swim in the Broad Ripple Canal. But what if I told you that drunken night was the start of his unique media career? The arrest led to appearances on Indianapolis local radio and starting the Pat McAfee Show with the local newspaper and then TV station. A decade later, Pat has turned his show into a $500 million business and one of the largest contracts in ESPN history. Welcome to FOS Explains. Today, we're uncovering the wild story of Pat McAfee and his rise from NFL punter to one of the most important figures in sports media. Pat McAfee's story begins on the football field, but it's one that took an unexpected turn. McAfee was drafted by the Indianapolis Colts in the 7th round of the 2009 NFL Draft. He kicked field goals and punted in college, but the Colts drafted McAfee to be their new punter. It's a position that normally doesn't earn you a whole lot of fame or spotlight, but McAfee's big personality made him stand out just a little bit, and he became a fan favorite in Indy. A year later, his mugshot was all over the internet going into the Colts bye week. He got arrested for public intoxication after getting drunk and taking a dip in the Broad Ripple Canal. Little did he know, that would be the thing that started his media career. McAfee was released 6 hours later, and the Colts suspended him for one game. So, a local radio show called Bob and Tom asked him to come on and talk about the situation. The way Pat told the story was so engaging that Bob and Tom asked him to come back and be a guest on the show every Tuesday. And eventually, other media outlets started calling too. In 2013, a local newspaper called the Indianapolis Star decided to start a weekly football show for their website. The sports editor, Ronnie Ramos, wanted a Colts player to host the show. But instead of asking the Colts' young, promising QB, they asked McAfee to host the show. So he signed a one-year, $10,000 contract to host the Indy Star Pat McAfee Show. They filmed once a week at a local bar and aired the show on the Indy Star website. The Indy Star show was obviously a little bit different from McAfee's show today. It was filmed in front of a constantly sold-out live audience and started with an opening monologue from Pat, sort of like a late-night show would. He'd crack jokes about things that happened in the NFL and play games with fans from the crowd, and from the start, it was clear he was an entertainer. But the show also had shades of what McAfee would become, sitting around a table having casual and funny panel-like discussions, previewing or recapping games, and bringing other NFL players on the show as guests. Shows like this with players usually didn't work. The players aren't always into it, or they aren't entertaining enough, but McAfee was different. He was all in, and the audience loved him. So the next year, a local TV station called. The Indianapolis NBC affiliate WTHR started its own version of the Pat McAfee Show in 2014. He'd co-host the show sitting in front of a green screen and live studio audience alongside WTHR sports director Dave Calabro. It was a lot of the same, bringing teammates and guests on the show, talking some sports, telling some funny stories, and doing fun pre-recorded stories like touring a corn maze shaped like Pat McAfee. He was constantly pitching new ideas for the show and wanting to do more, and eventually started wondering if he enjoyed media more than the NFL. Let's not forget that Pat McAfee was one of the best punters in the NFL at the same time he was hosting these shows. He was a Pro Bowl selection in 2014 and 2016 and first team All-Pro in 2014. He signed a 5-year, $14 million contract in 2014, but knee injuries began to take a toll. He had 3 surgeries in 4 years, and his love for the game was fading, which McAfee says he respected the game too much to not give it 100%. So, on February 2nd, 2017, McAfee announced his retirement.
As of today, I am officially retiring from the NFL.
Pat was leaving football to join Barstool Sports, something that shocked the NFL world. Insider Ian Rappaport called it a Super Bowl level surprise. Keep in mind, McAfee was coming off a Pro Bowl selection and was giving up nearly $6 million over the final 2 years of his contract, but it was the right choice. Barstool was a popular media company known for its edgy, no-filter approach to sports and pop culture. It was the perfect match for McAfee. With Barstool's backing, he launched the 3rd iteration of the Pat McAfee Show. This ultimately became the format and show we know today. It was a sports talk podcast that didn't just cover the highlights and scores. He dug into the personalities, the behind-the-scenes stories, and the crazy, unpredictable side of sports. He brought his over-the-top style to every episode. He wasn't afraid to make jokes, call things out, or or even question the leagues themselves. People tuned in because they wanted to hear what Pat McAfee had to say. In no time, the show started growing a huge loyal fan base. McAfee's big personality and unique approach to sports commentary resonated with fans who were tired of that same old sports talk. In 2018, the Pat McAfee Show even started airing every weekday on Barstool's SiriusXM radio channel, but the perfect marriage ended in August 2018. McAfee posted this announcement on Twitter revealing that he was leaving Barstool Sports because of people making financial moves without his knowledge. He was taking his show the independent route and was now a free agent. The Pat McAfee Show really became its own company in the year after leaving Barstool. And after leaving, Pat and his team officially launched the Pat McAfee Show that we know today. It's a 2-hour show every weekday streamed to YouTube, and this is where the show really blew up, eventually getting well over 1 million subscribers and getting hundreds of thousands of views every day. But to be your own company, you have to have some sort of money coming in to pay your team. So throughout the first couple of years, the show had a video distribution deal with DAZN, and then separate audio distribution deals with Westwood One and then SiriusXM's Mad Dog Radio. Those eventually led to a 4-year, $120 million sponsorship deal with FanDuel in 2022. This deal legitimized just how big and valuable the show was. In an instant, the Pat McAfee Show was no longer the little show with a cult following, it was now a juggernaut in sports media. The show also got better visually over the years, moving from an office to a new studio and buying a vacant church in 2021. They spent a year transforming the old Lawrence Church into the Thunderdome, where they filmed the show today. It was a big risk going solo, but it paid off in massive dividends, placing McAfee as a force to be reckoned with in sports media. And it was the setup that laid the framework for what was to come next. The Pat McAfee Show joining ESPN. In 2023, ESPN came calling, recognizing the McAfee Show's influence and the way Pat captivated a younger, passionate audience. They offered him a staggering 4-year, $85 million deal, and it brought Pat McAfee and his show to ESPN. This marked one of the largest contracts in ESPN history and cemented the Pat McAfee Show as one of ESPN's most anticipated new shows. Joining ESPN was a huge step up and gave McAfee an even larger platform. But there was a problem. The McAfee Show was known for dropping F-bombs and cursing, something that doesn't quite align with the family-friendly brand of Disney, who owns ESPN. ESPN and McAfee came to an agreement, though.
We have decided that we won't be saying fuck nearly as much, but every other word is good to go.
ESPN has trusted McAfee's vision and is letting him run the show with minimal restrictions to keep it as raw, funny, and bold the way his fans know and love it. Things haven't been entirely rosy throughout this relationship, though. People have attributed Disney's mass layoffs to McAfee's monster contract. The network cut about 20 on-air stars like Max Kellerman and Jeff Van Gundy to save money around the same time that McAfee started his deal. And McAfee has stirred up some drama on the air, too, calling out former ESPN exec Norby Williamson live on air for trying to, quote, sabotage McAfee's show. Rather than suspending or fining McAfee, which is what would usually happen, ESPN eventually parted ways with Williamson. The brand sticking by his side has shown just how powerful an asset ESPN sees McAfee as. McAfee's style was something ESPN had been missing, a voice that resonated with a younger, more diverse audience. And McAfee brings a fresh energy that appeals to fans who want something different from the classic studio setup and commentator-driven shows. From the start, the Pat McAfee Show on ESPN broke all the usual sports broadcasting molds. McAfee made jokes, spoke his mind without holding back, and even dressed in his signature tank tops and casual clothes, a big contrast from everyone else in suits on their other shows. This approach set him apart and made him relatable. For viewers, it felt like tuning into a friend's podcast rather than a typical ESPN broadcast. This authenticity drew a massive crowd, and soon, McAfee's show was a top performer, bringing in viewers who weren't even regular ESPN fans. Some of McAfee's best moments have come outside of his signature show. He had his first stint covering college football at ESPN back in 2019, Pat and ESPN ended up parting ways back then, but that opened up the door for him to be a WWE commentator. He first got involved in WWE around 2018 doing some guest commentating. He then became a pre-show host for WrestleMania in 2019, and by 2020, McAfee was also getting in the ring to wrestle. He wrestled at WrestleMania in 2022 and made a surprise appearance at the 2024 Royal Rumble, where he became the first commentator to ever hop in the ring. McAfee is now a permanent part of the WWE Raw commentary crew, and has also rejoined ESPN's College Game Day. He returned as a permanent member of that crew back in 2022, creating some of the show's most viral moments on social media. By allowing McAfee to bring his personality to these programs, ESPN was able to make them more dynamic and relatable, attracting a younger audience that might not have been tuning in before. So, what do you think? Is there a part of McAfee's journey that surprised you? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and make sure to like and subscribe for more on the business of sports. See you in the next one.